You are listening to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators, alongside Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs here on the eve of the Stanley Cup Finals. We've got the Tampa Bay Lightning, the heavyweights, the back-to-back champs, going up against the high-powered but previously underachieving Colorado Avalanche. They broke through with authority, sweeping the Western Conference Finals. We're going to handicap the Stanley Cup Finals. There's been some big names thrown out in the rumor mill. John Gibson out of Anaheim, is he available? Are the Boston Bruins really thinking about moving David Pastrnak? We're going to dive into the rumor mill, and then a fun story out of Winnipeg as the coaching carousel has to stop at some point. We'll tell you what one local brewery in Winnipeg is doing to try to woo Barry Trotz to Manitoba. All that coming up on today's edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. It's your team every day.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are listening to the Locked On NHL podcast. We are very pleased that you've chosen to join us as your first listen on this Tuesday, June 14th. As I mentioned off the top, it is the eve of the Stanley Cup Finals. But first, Mikey, we have to say thoughts and prayers to our New York Rangers. It was a good run, but it came short.
It did come short, and we did not get a big addition to the bank account because of it. So Bet Online, they stole our money. They get to keep the funds. They were looking good through the first, 2 games, and then a period where they were up 2-0 in game 3 with a 2-0 lead in the series. It all looked great. And then Vasilevsky came alive, and it was really downhill from there. And they just couldn't score at all. They scored 1 goal at 5-on-5 the final 4 games. 1 goal at 5-on-5, dude, on Andrei Vasilevsky. It's insane. But yeah, that's you know what? I think that it's good for that team to get the experience, though, like the young kids. What'd you make of Kako, though, getting scratched in Game 6? That was a head scratcher.
Yeah, that was super strange, right? You're looking at a situation where what do they have to lose? 1, 2, he was a part of their most productive line in terms of expected goals. I know the top line with Mika, they did their work on the power play, but you look at that line of Hito, Lafreniere, and Kako, the kid line, affectionately known in New York, and it just, for some reason, Gerard Gallant wanted to mix it up. When you have a chance to get Dryden Hunt into a game, Mikey, you got to do it. I'm telling you.
Apparently, I don't know. And he was asked about it today. And obviously, coach didn't say a whole heck of a lot. But Kako apparently said, I didn't even realize I was being scratched until I saw the lineup card, that day. That probably did not go over very well. I wonder if maybe that prompts some rumors or some sort of off-season movement for him, because the second overall pick, he is an RFA this offseason. Not sure how contract negotiations are going to go with him. Potentially, that's a guy who may want to change his scenery, especially after, being scratched like that.
Well, the Tampa Bay Lightning still have not lost on home ice since Game 3 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That in itself is a streak. They've now won 7 or 8 straight at home, and that just seems like the icing on top. It's such an awesome atmosphere, even for a regular season game down in Tampa. But you add on the extra layers. Like, look at Vasilevsky standing on his head, but it's everybody. Like, Hedman had to leave the game for a little while in Game 6 after taking a bit of a dirty play, in my opinion. Like, Lafreniere, not only does he lead with his elbow, but he's got to climb a ladder to get up there to 6'6" Victor Hedman, and gets him right on the chin. Hedman knew right away that he was like, okay, either the spotter's going to take me off, or I can just run to the locker room, try to get this over with quick. He made it back, but it's just next man up. Like, you saw Sergachev explode for 2 goals in one of those final games. Like, it is such an unbelievable team we're witnessing right now. You thought when they put in the salary cap that it was going to be more parity. And we're seeing it in the regular season to an extent. I mean, in the East, where there's obviously the haves and the have-nots, but 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. I almost said cups. They're not there yet, but it is truly remarkable what Tampa Bay Lightning are doing. And they're the dogs right now at Bet Online. I have a tough time betting against them, though, personally.
Yeah, Matty Cause, who you know very well, obviously, worked with him at TSN 1050 with us. He has a golden rule that he talks about all the time on Gameplay. If you ever have Vasilevsky in the Lightning and you can get them at plus money, take it.
Yeah.
Don't even think to take it. So Matt Cause would argue that you got to go with the Tampa Bay Lightning in this best of 7 series. That's what they say. But before we kind of get into any of that and we make predictions with that, which I know we're going to do, I do want to also give flowers to one other guy on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Dude, Steven Stamkos. I mean, what they're doing without Braden Point is largely because this guy has stepped up, right? And I mean, Stamkos is a terrific player. This guy probably is going to be a Hall of Famer. But, you think about the last 2 cups, he hasn't really been the main focal point. In the first one, in the bubble, I mean, the guy played 1 shift. He scored.
Yeah.
It was an awesome shift. One of the most amazing shifts probably in the history of hockey. But at the end of the day, he played 1 shift and scored 1 goal throughout the entire playoff. So not a big, part of that, not a big part of that win. But then even last year wasn't really the guy. It was more Kucherov and Braden Point. But this year with Point going down, Stammer really has had to fill in, stay healthy, and he's really become just an all-around complete player. And currently also now leading the Tampa Bay Lightning with 9 goals through the playoffs and was the reason why they won Game 6, scored the goals in Game 6, including the game winner as well, right? So, I think Steven Stamkos, what he's been able to do, not only just in the playoffs, he's terrific in the regular season, a career-high 106 points, but to pick up what was left over for what, after Braden Point's injury, someone had to step up. And this guy is one who definitely did offensively. Not that we didn't think he could, but it's still really great to see that he's finally, I guess, putting a stamp on one of these runs for the Tampa Bay Lightning as one of the top dogs.
That game-winning goal in Game 6, the series clincher, the conference clincher, is now a new career high in a single playoff. He had 8 goals in last year's Stanley Cup run. That was 23 games this time. He does it in 17. And my last flower that I'll give out is to Andre Palat. This guy is the unsung hero, the 7th round pick, drafted in his 3rd year of eligibility for the draft. Up and coming. This guy's got 11 game-winning goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs, including in Game 4, was able to get this thing rolling back in the right direction. A pivotal Game 4, right? You win Game 3 at home, you're like, okay, still 2-1 for the Rangers, but winning Game 4 was huge, and then they just start rolling from there. Like, they are so deep, and Braden Point, yesterday, Monday, a full participant in practice. Do you think we're going to see Braden Point in the lineup for Game 1?
Game 1, no. And I only say that because I don't think it was John Cooper. I think it was one of the other coaches, actually. But somebody in Tampa Bay spoke to media and said I wouldn't necessarily look into today's practice lines too in depth. And it could be another game or 2 before we see Braden Point play, just because the injury was so bad for him. But I do think we'll see him at some point, like 100%. If not Game 1, then Game 2, Game 3 at the very latest, I would assume. But we're definitely going to get to see some Braden Point. And the real question now is, are we going to see Nazem Kadri play? I think that's the more question mark when it comes to this series. But if I was a betting man, I would say they both do end up playing a game. But before I get your thoughts on that one, Ross, why don't I tell the good folks about Built Bar?
My favorite.
Look, dude, they've got these new Built Bars too, mud pies. Oh, they're so good. You know what makes them taste really well? If you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this, because the new mud pie bar is rich whipped cream and chocolate mousse smothered in 100% real chocolate, topped with cookies and cream crumble. you've got to try the mud pie as soon as possible, and you need to hurry because the mud pie bar and the mud pie puff are only available for limited time. So visit built.com to taste the deliciousness for yourself. Not convinced? Luckily, we saved the best for last. It's actually good for you too. No, seriously, all of the Built products are low calorie, high protein, and low sugar. The mud pie one packed with 16 grams of protein, but only 150 calories and only 8 grams of sugar. It's like your mom baked the most deliciously creamy chocolate mud pie and wrapped it up just for you. What's great about Built too is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new Mud Pie Built Bar and Built Puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just something to grab, a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and it tastes better than a candy bar. Chocolate mousse, whipped cream, cookies, and cream crumble. Just stop drooling right now, Ross. Stop drooling right now. Go to Built.com, order your box of Mud Pie bars and puffs. You won't regret it. Go to Built.com and, hey, use the promo code LOCKED15. Get yourself 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com.
You are listening to the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Senators alongside Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And the best way to help us grow is to leave a comment below, give the video a thumbs up, and go follow all the great hosts here at Locked On NHL, including Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Lightning. We've got the Stanley Cup Finals. Before we get back to a little handicapping of that, check in on the rumor mill. And this story out of Winnipeg is just too good to be true. We got to give a shout out to Team Canada, women's under 18 champions. It was never in doubt. Mikey, my favorite part about this story is that the Canadians lost 7-0 to Team USA in the round robin, only to get their revenge when it mattered most, a 3-2 victory. Really cool to see Jerome McGinley's daughter participate in this tournament as well. She's a hell of a player.
Yeah, like father, like daughter. It was like that one, that meme. It's like, they had us in the first half, but then we came out in the second half. You know what I mean? I'm talking about.
Yep.
That's what it reminded me of. Or the
100%.
old man, where he's like, you need to call an ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah. Hey, shout out Team Canada. Absolutely love to see it. And heartbreak for the Americans at both the men's and women's under 18s. The U.S. men's team, we're doing our draft rankings at Locked On Senators, and that entire U.S. team is on our rankings. There's so much talent. Wow. Team Sweden came out and dummied them in the gold medal game. They had an unbelievable performance. Names you're going to hear at the draft: Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, Noah Ostlund, Liam Ogren. We got him up tomorrow. Studs coming up. This draft's going to be great. Before we get to the draft, though, the Stanley Cup Final, the crown jewel of the hockey season. Colorado, we haven't talked much about. Where are you at with the whole rest versus rust? They've been off for way longer than I'm sure they'd like, although they'll just tell you that they're healing up, banging bodies. But again, they swept 2 out of 3 of the series as well. I'm a believer
that they'll come out a little rusty. I think so. Like if
we even saw that with Tampa.
That's exactly what I was gonna go to. I mean, we saw Tampa and their layoff.
8 days, I think.
Long. Yeah, I think it was even a little shorter, a day shorter. Like this is 9 days between games when Colorado defeated Edmonton last Monday, and they're not playing until the following Wednesday. It's 9 days in between games. Yes, they're 100% going to be rusty. I buy into that, which is why I think I'm going to be placing wagers on Tampa to win game 1, if I'm being honest. Yeah. And probably you can also make a wager for game 1 as well as the finals winner, and that's how I'm going to be making a wager. But
I like that.
I really do believe that this is going to be a factor. I mean, Colorado's going to come out and it'll be fine. They're not going to get blown out the water like I think we saw happen with Tampa Bay. But ultimately, I think that the Bolts are just such an unbelievable team, and they're in a groove right now. Vasilevsky is in a groove. I just don't see how Colorado is going to come out and blow the doors off of them. I know they're at home and the altitude, you could make an argument that they'll have a bit of an advantage there, and perhaps that could weigh down the Tampa Bay Lightning. But ultimately, I think there's going to be a little bit of rust in game one.
Okay, so we've talked so much, waxed poetically about Andrei Vasilevsky, and for great reason, too. You can go back the last 2 episodes, or 3 straight that we've done together, Mikey. We've just talked about how this guy's one of the greatest goalies of all time. We know there is less than 0 chance, of course, knock on wood, injuries aside, that Brian Elliott will see action in this Stanley Cup Finals. Now, on the other hand, Darcy Kemper's been hurt. We know that he took that stick in the eye early on in the playoffs, missed some time, came back, then had a random absence where he left the game kind of out of nowhere in one of the games against Edmonton. Pavel Francouz is 6-0 this postseason.
Yeah.
Who do you start game one?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I really don't know where I go with this. I mean, Kemper's been your guy throughout the season. Like, he's been your starter. But at the same time, you're getting winning goaltender out of Francouz. I'll say this, though. He didn't look terrific in game 4. Like, he did give up 5 goals. So perhaps if he would have had a stellar performance in those last couple games against Edmonton, then maybe you think twice about, putting him out there. I think I would go with Kemper. If he is healthy, which according to the coach, he's ready to go. They just haven't named a starter yet. I would go with Darcy Kemper. Get him back out there. That's the player that I think I would be starting game one if I was Jared Bednar.
Okay, well, this is courtesy of the NHL Network, but you can see the stat breakdown right here. You've got a better save percentage, the higher goals against average, and the 1 shutout there, which obviously helps the save percentage jump up as well. I probably lean Kemper as well, which is crazy to say when you see that .897 save percentage, but they brought him in for this reason in the offseason, to be their guy. And Francouz, good numbers, decent numbers, like a 907. It's not jumping out at you. What's Vasilevsky at, 920 or higher? At that, it's not like they're going up against Shesterkin here, 2.0, but even still, man, some of those goals he let in were right along the ice, tough. But the weird thing is, though, and this does benefit him at the same time, maybe less now that the team's had a full week to prepare and know that it could be a possibility. But I noticed that Edmonton, typically the best place to score on a goalie is high blocker, right? Just like, especially Vasilevsky's led in the most high blocker goals out of anyone.
Yeah, in a way, but he also worked on that later on in the series, and it did not come as often as it was earlier once people started to keen in on that. I think there were some work in practice to make sure that he gave that high blocker a little bit of some practice time.
The point I'm getting at there, though, is Francouz is a southpaw. So he's different. So you throw that in the middle of a game, and guys think they're going blocker, boom, he just snags it out of midair, and it's no problem. So interesting, man. Maybe do you think it's hard way to frame it, because obviously the Kemper's not 100%. I think that's fair to say. Not many guys are.
But here's the thing with Kemper, though. Like, it's not a physical injury. Wasn't it like a kind of headache? It had something to do with his eye again. So it's not like he's...
you better hope he can see the puck.
Right. I think that's the issue. I don't think it was necessarily... I mean, there could be, obviously, bumps and bruises, but it wasn't like he had a groin injury or a knee injury where it's like a physical ailment. It's more of, I don't know, like, it wasn't necessarily a concussion, I don't believe. It was just... He was blurred vision. And so, to even suggest, I guess, he's not 100%, it's like, I don't really know if he is or not, because it's really not necessarily a physical ailment.
Pretty important part to playing goalie, though. You got to see the puck.
Yeah, no, it is important. I just don't know if this is something that it works in like a day, a week, 7 days. Like, I have no idea how long. Maybe he is 100%. Where, like, if I poke myself in the eye, 5 minutes later, I'll be fine. I'll be blurry for a couple of minutes, but I'll be perfectly fine afterwards. Obviously, this was a much different situation. We all know that. But how long is this going to be a factor for? Like, this happened in the Nashville series.
Yes.
Like, they went through an entire second round without this being a bother. And then, boom, game one, all of a sudden against Edmonton, there was some sort of issue, apparently. It's just such a bizarre situation. I have no idea what to think of it.
It certainly is. And I'm having trouble handicapping this whole series because there's so much talent on both sides. Cale Makar has 22 points in 14 games as a
Unreal.
defenseman. It's
Unreal.
absolutely insane. Nathan MacKinnon has 11 goals. Again, 14 games. This is just video game stats from the Colorado Avalanche this entire postseason. They have done anything you can imagine and more. They're getting decent enough goaltending. We know that's been their Achilles heel in years past, but this Lightning team, it's just like, how are you going to bet on them? The last time Pat Maroon lost a playoff series was 2018. And guess who beat him? The Tampa Bay Lightning. And again, he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to go to my hometown. You know what? This bouncing around thing isn't for me. From Anaheim to Edmonton to New Jersey, maybe even a few other stops in there. And what does he do? Wins a hometown Stanley Cup, comes to Tampa. He's now won 15 straight playoff series. It is
Unreal.
absolutely incredible. I'm putting you on the spot now, though, Mikey. What's it going to be? Who's going to lift the Stanley Cup in the next 2 weeks?
So this is going to be a good test of what wins you a championship in modern day hockey.
Yep.
Elite offenses in the Colorado Avalanche, who are averaging more than 4 goals a game throughout this postseason. Or is it elite defense and goaltending in the Tampa Bay Lightning and Andrei Vasilevsky? Like, this is a true, this is where we're going to find out, I guess, what is modern day hockey all about. I still have a feeling that defense wins championships. And the best defenseman is the guy between the pipes, Andrei Vasilevsky. That guy's in a groove right now, man. He is in a groove. And I think a big reason why I'm tipping towards Tampa Bay's perspective, if Braden Point comes back and he's effective like we are hoping he would be, I think that's huge. I'm not sold that Nazem Kadri returns, and if he does, that's a bum hand, man. It's what's he really going to be able to do? I like their chances a little bit more because even if he comes back, Braden Point, you've got that top line, and then you put Point as your focal point on the second line, no pun intended. But then you will have that third line of like Killorn, Cirelli, and who's been with them? Nick Paul, I think.
Yeah, they've been bouncing around, man. Like, that's what's really impressed me. John Cooper has really just like kept things flowing. Like, obviously Kucherov and Stamkos have been together for a big part of it. Paul's been up on that line for a little bit, but they're just moving around. They had Paul and Hagel together for a little while, but as it stands right now on Daily Faceoff, it's Killorn, Cirelli, and Hagel as the second line. Palat up with Stamkos and Kucherov. Nick Paul centering Ross Colton and Corey Perry.
Right. And today in practice, you had Point, Paul, and Colton was kind of the practice lines. But you could stick Cirelli as your like matchup guy on Nathan MacKinnon, and then you essentially need to allow, like, who's going to stop the Kucherov line then? Who's going to stop Braden Point on whatever line he ends up being? Like, they can spread it out if Point returns and Kadri doesn't, whereas I'm not so sold on the depth if Kadri's out, especially down the middle for Colorado. And I think it's way more likely that we see Braden Point over Kadri in this series.
Now, the other side of that, though, is that Taves and Makar on the back end for Colorado, when the Avalanche have both of them in the lineup this year, they're 63, 9, and 6.
Yeah, there's also a guy on the other side by the name of Victor Hedman who ain't too shabby himself. I don't think they've really played a guy like him so far. I mean, it's
fair enough. And would you say
Roman Yossi is pretty solid, but I still think Hedman's like almost in a league of his own. It's really Makar and Hedman, which is an underlying storyline that we get to see the two greatest defensemen in the game today going mano-a-mano.
Yeah, it really is spectacular. Now, a part of me is like, oh, Tampa got to see Adam Fox last series. Does that prepare them? But Cale Makar is just his own animal. Like, the skating is just so generational. It's not even elite. It's beyond that. And Devin Taves just complements him so perfectly. It's going to be a Ali Fraser type matchup here in the Stanley Cup Final, and I am so fired up. But I can't bet against the champs. You know what? You can't beat them, join them. I had the Rangers, although my official pick was the Lightning when I bet with my head looking at the series, but my heart said the Rangers. I'm 12 for 14 this postseason. So I don't know if I'm putting that to the test, but plus 155 at Bet Online, plus 155 for the back-to-back champs.
Good value.
I have to take that with we're a goalie-friendly show, Locked On Senators. Like Vasilevsky and Kemper, Vasilevsky and Francouz, I know who I'm trusting in a must-win situation. So I'm taking the Lightning in 6 games. Mikey, how about you?
I'll go also Lightning in 6.
6?
I was going to go 7, but like I want them to win on home ice. So I'll take them in 6, and we'll see a home ice victory for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Absolutely. All right. We got plenty more to get to. We're going to go see a quick take around the rumor mill. Easy for me to say. And then we'll check in on that Winnipeg story at the end of it. This is the Locked On NHL podcast. We'll be right back after this. You are listening to the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me Monday to Friday on Locked On Senators alongside Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. We're well into our draft coverage, offseason, rumor mill. Again, every team has a show. That's the beauty of the Locked On NHL network. So go follow Adam Denker on Locked On Lightning, Chris Michelli, Kyle Sullivan on Locked On Avalanche. They're getting set for the Stanley Cup Final. Your boy, Nick Alberga, the Golden Muzzy, Sirius XM Radio, was on the NHL channel there forever, contributor with Sportsnet. He dropped a bomb.
Yeah.
John Gibson potentially asking out from Anaheim. I mean, this has kind of been boiling for a couple of years, knowing that Anaheim's been going through this rebuild, but he's still like mid-20s, 28 years old now? He's going to be a stud wherever he goes, in my opinion.
Yeah, he'll be 29 by the time the league year starts. He's a summer birthday. Nick Alberga dropping an Alberga bomb, and then kind of corroborated by Kevin Weeks and who else ended up corroborating this?
Everybody except for John Gibson's agent.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah,
Shocker.
Exactly. Shocker. You're right. But apparently there was, I think it was the fourth period.
Dave Pagnotta.
Yeah, Pagnotta was tweeting too, saying that, well, there was actually some conversations being had at the trade deadline. Some guys calling in, seeing if potentially John Gibson would be available. So I would assume some of those teams will be calling back and see if they can get in on the sweepstakes. So yeah, it looks like Gibson would be welcoming a trade. Now he's got a no trade, or I think he's got a modified no trade, so he can pick 10 teams or whatever. But yeah, I don't. Where are you at with John Gibson? Because
I think he's so sick. Like, again, it's tough when you're playing in the situation that you are in Anaheim. I know you said his advanced numbers
don't look
so great.
That's the problem. He was sick, and I was such a big time John Gibson fan when he first got drafted. I saw him at the World Juniors. I'm like, holy smokes, this guy's gonna be the American Carey Price.
Yeah,
like that's what I thought he was gonna be, and he was trending that way the first few years in the league. But you just go look at the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
He's performed well below expectation. And that's why analytics has a place in the game, because you can kind of look at it. So a lot of the conversation right now, they say, oh, yeah, he's got a save percentage at about 904 the last 3 years, and his goals against is above 3. But his defense has been terrible because that team has been on the downturn. Yes, that's correct. That's why you look at analytics and you look at expected numbers, and for what you're expected to give up based on the amount and the, first of all, amount of chances and the quality of chances is how you get your expected numbers. So when you're giving up, though, more actual goals than what you were expected to, that's not a good sign. And it's 3 years in a row now for John Gibson that he's given up more goals than expected. I'm not sure that I would be lining up and willing to give up top prospects or top capital to bring in a guy who's got 5 more years left on this deal at $6.4 million, seeing this downward trend 3 straight years. That's not a small sample size.
Yeah, you're right. That is a lot of commitment. But at the same time, you could look at it and be like, I have a 28-year-old goalie who I know is a starter and has been elite in the past. And if you're a GM that trusts that he can get back to his game, then you're like, oh, that's actually a positive. He's locked up long term. Now, my analytics is by clicking on, and I like seeing how the other goalie plays on the team. And Anthony Stolarz had better numbers than him. So that worries me in a sense too. Stolarz played 28 games, had a .917 save percentage versus Gibson down at .903 in 50-some games. So I see the nerves there, and I asked you, like, as a Leafs guy, like, would you trade Nylander? Obviously, he's always the hot button guy, but you said no way, Jose.
Not a chance. Not for Nylander. No, I wouldn't trade Nylander for him. It's funny. We literally had a conversation today on Locked On Leafs about this exact topic. We did a 40-minute show on the report. We gave the pros and cons of whether or not you should or shouldn't trade for him. And then both Dave and I gave our trade proposal for what we would give up for it. Are you interested? Did I give a tease and maybe potentially give up the proposal, mine at least, on the show? What do we think? Should I do it here?
Do you want to do that? Why don't you do that quick? We'll get into it briefly, and then I want to touch on Pasternak too here before we move on.
All right. So this is what I was thinking, a potential move for the Maple Leafs. Let us know in the comments below if you think this is something that might fly for Toronto. So I think if you're bringing in John Gibson, I think Peter Mrazek has to be included in the deal for two reasons. One, to give them another goaltender who's an NHL caliber goalie. Whether or not he's a great one is up for debate, but he's an NHL caliber goaltender and has been for the last 4 seasons, injuries aside from this year, I guess. So Peter Mrazek also to make the cap work. So you toss him in that trade. I think you're going to need a decent prospect to also be included in there to entice them to trade to your team, because I think there's going to be a few teams out there, so it could be a competitive market. So I think Rasmus Sandin, a good young defenseman, could be available, this offseason from the Maple Leafs, and potentially you package him and you package a 25th overall pick that the Maple Leafs had as well. And you get John Gibson and you ask for a pick number 42. So it's more of a pick slide or a pick swap of your first, their second, but they also end up with Rasmus Sandin, who is the big time prospect, who I think has top 4 potential. He's still relatively young, 22, 23 years old. And he showed this year that, you go look at his numbers and his expected goals is in the positive almost every single night he's out there. Mm-hmm. I think that he's trending to be a top 4 guy. So to me, Mrazek, Sandin, and 25th overall for John Gibson and pick number 42. Maybe if you have to add another piece to the puzzle, you could potentially add a B prospect like an SDA or an Alex Steves, maybe a Joey Anderson, something like that. Or maybe they would want something like a Justin Hall who can help them now, and it was a pending UFA who they could probably flip for a pick at the deadline. So that would be the proposal that I'm looking at that I think would be fair value for the Maple Leafs to acquire a John Gibson.
And for more on that, you can go check out Locked On Leafs. I like that up until you added the second from Anaheim. I thought a first, Sandin, and Mrazek is like negative value, but I can see how you have to have it to make it work. But I don't know. I think moving down 20 picks might just be kind of like, do we even care to do that? Now, the question here is, does Anaheim have any like mid-round picks? Because to me, that would make a lot more sense rather than giving up. They do have 2 seconds, but to me, I'd say give them the 4th instead. But hey, you are on the right track, and clearly the Leafs, that's the position of need for them this offseason. And if a team needs a top 6 scorer, hell, a top scorer, forget 6, top scorer, could David Pasternak be on the move this summer? We've seen some decent scorers on the move in the recent summers, but I don't think we've seen one like this. 25 years old. Now, he is 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. Could it be a sign and trade type situation? But, man, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I don't see how the Bruins are anything but in the running for Connor Bedard next year with no McAvoy, no Marchand for the first 3 months of the season. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, Bruins for Bedard I've seen trending out there over the last little bit. It's not a move that I consider making. Like, if I'm the Boston Bruins, I would keep this guy because I think he could be a top-flight goal scorer for 10 years. So even if you do kind of tank out or you bottom out and you get a good draft pick, maybe you do get Bedard, that's a player you're going to want to play with. Connor Bedard is a guy like that, right? Like, and these guys are coming back too. So I would not move him. I understand the conversations about potentially moving on from him. I know that he was good friends with David Krejci, and there's a reason why Krejci left. I wonder. What's that?
Krug and Pasternak were best friends too.
Right, Torrey Krug, who also ended up leaving via free agency. I wonder if the Bruce Cassidy firing increases his chances of staying or potentially decreases his chances of staying. Like I still am not 100% sure on what that firing means for that team. But if you're an opposing team around the NHL, you are 1000% calling in and seeing, all right, what's it going to take? Because I am all in on this guy, because this guy's going to be like a 50 goal scorer for the next 6-7 years. That's what David Pastrnak is. There's not many guys. They don't grow on trees. So, yeah, I'd be calling if I'm any other team in the league saying, all right, what can we give you to bring in this extremely amazing talent? But whether or not Boston truly is open to moving him, I'm not as sold as some are. I think they should hold on to him. Would not be a smart move if you're Don Sweeney.
We got the coaching carousel going on right now, and it's just spinning around in circles. Nobody's getting off and signing a ticket. We've already spoken on this show about how you have to have your coach by the draft, and we're 3 weeks away. So something's got to give, and a local brewery here in Winnipeg, the Little Brown Jug, great beers, they are putting an offer on the table for Barry Trotz. We know that Winnipeg has not been secret about wanting Barry Trotz. They've made an offer for him. Now, free beer for life is a pretty solid addition for a guy who's from here. So it's not like they're going to have to mail away the beer. Not only that, they are going to create a specific beer for him. The Trotz Lager. Maybe the something about Dauphin, because that's a little town in Manitoba that he's from. The Dauphin Drought, something like that, But they said they're going to make their own beer. And this is courtesy Winnipeg Sports Talk with Andrew Patterson. He's a TSN expat as well. And so they're putting all the stops in here. And we know Barry Trotz is a good beer drinking man too. So maybe that sways it. And if you're listening to this here on Tuesday, and if Barry Trotz signs in Winnipeg today, that timing would just be unbelievable.
That would be unbelievable. That's hilarious. I wonder if that also extends to like a friends and family, if that would count. If that's friends and family, I mean, you're gonna have every single person being like, Barry, you gotta come home, dude. Like, you gotta. The offers are way too good.
Oh,
way too good.
Yeah, stacked. They got to make a decision soon here, these coaches, because Barry Trotz just been taking his sweet ass time.
I can't believe that. Like you said, we're 3 weeks from the draft, and there's still 6 coaching vacancies, and there's still a couple of coaches who are still on the interim tag, including Florida. And that makes me feel weird, the fact that he still has the interim tag on him, and they've been eliminated for a couple of weeks here.
Nominated for Coach of the Year.
I'm starting to lean that we're going to have a new face behind the bench in Florida at this point. I don't know. They think they would have just solidified Brunette as the coach by now if he was going to be the guy going forward, no?
I would think so. It's something to think about. We'll leave you with that. Let us know in the comments if you think that Andrew Brunette will be back as the Florida Panthers coach. Hilarious, by the way, that Trotz story, Mikey, was picked up by the New York Post with the free beer. So it's an international story now.
Going to make my last 2 guesses. I know we kind of did this last week, but based on what we're hearing, I like David Quinn. Sounds like David Quinn is getting a lot more love into Boston. I think that's going to happen.
Former BU coach.
Sure is. Also played for BU as well way back in the day. And then Torts
in Philly. Yeah.
Basically going to be basically a lock.
Well, unless Trotz decides, I don't know why Trotz would go there. He was dead. They were dead last on our Trotz power rankings last week.
Yeah, I don't understand why that would possibly. What would they want? What would Barry Trotz want to go there? A, the blue line stinks. B, the team stinks. It's just why?
No, it makes no sense. We'll leave with this question, Mikey. By the time we talk next Tuesday, will there be multiple coaches hired?
1,000%. 1,000%. They have to. At some point, these coaches who are waiting on Barry Trotz are just going to have to throw in the towel and go and sign their second guy. Yeah. It's got to happen. It doesn't sound like Winnipeg is willing to do that.
No.
They're going to hold out till the very end, it seems like. But some of these other clubs who have interest in Barry Trotz, they might move on and go and get a Pete DeBoer or a Bruce Cassidy who's available now. Like, there are some other great coaches who are available and who could potentially fill in those roles quite admirably, and they just don't want to wait anymore. I think we'll definitely see, definitely multiple, 2 or more coaching hirings by the time we speak next Tuesday.
And when those hires are made, make sure you check out each local NHL podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, because we've got your team every day, Monday through Friday. We've got the champs, the 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Final. You can follow the draft rankings that we're doing at Locked On Senators, the hypothetical trades. The rumor mill is churning over at Locked On Maple Leafs. So go find your favorite hosts. Make them your second listen of the day. We appreciate you making Locked On NHL your first. For Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs, I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow night.